Hello, everyone. We're live. Welcome to another episode of Around the Block. I'm your host, Aaron Cottrell, Senior Product Manager at Validation Cloud. Validation Cloud is a Web3 data and AI company. We do RPC, we do staking, and now more in the data space. And this podcast series is about highlighting sort of builders and workers in the Web3 space to understand what they do, what they're working on, and learn a bit more. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Alex Lipton, who works for SSV Labs. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you. Thanks, Aaron. Pleasure to be here. We've been working with Validation Cloud for some time, and it's been great to get to know your team and work closely with you guys. So, yeah, delighted to be here.
Awesome. So what we'll cover today, just to give everyone a sense. So we'll learn a little bit about Alex and his like wandering path into Web3. Then we're going to learn about SSV, kind of what is it as like an organization, and we're going to learn about distributed validators, specifically related to Ethereum. Then Alex is going to sort of demo and walk us through a little bit of how that works, and then we'll close out with some of the things being worked on at SSV and some of the themes. So if that sounds good, Alex, I know everyone has a different wandering path to where they are now. Could you give us a bit of an overview of your background and how you ended up at SSV, and then maybe we'll jump into what SSV is and what you do there.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I think I took a pretty adjacent path into Web3. Actually, we were just talking before we hit live. Both Aaron and I went to Nottingham University, but I took a non-technical path and I studied economics, but really began my career in the traditional finance space. I was working at a capital markets trade association where all the members were all the leading banks and asset managers. And at the time, around 2018, we were helping them really better understand DLT technology, as it was commonly known then, and private blockchains, CBDCs, custody, exchange, really kind of help them grasp what are the opportunities and challenges for them to participate in this new technology. But at the same time, I'd downloaded MetaMask and kind of gone wild on the early Ethereum decentralized applications, and really began to immediately understand the power of this technology, all the opportunities that are out there, but also the challenges that we need to work through to scale and fulfill this vision of Web3 and the promises that it brings. So it was from there that I had the opportunity to join Consensus. Consensus, for anyone that's involved in crypto, knows is one of the preeminent Ethereum companies, obviously bringing to market products like MetaMask and Infura, Linear. So I had the opportunity to work closely with the team and really work closely with some exceptional builders and visionaries and really great people to work and learn from. So spend the better part of about 3 years there, really building a lot of products from the ground up from a business development perspective. And it was from that point onwards where I took a lot of interest in the Ethereum staking space. Met the SSV network team. I'm really impressed with the vision and the product of what they're building with distributed validator technology. I've been involved with the ecosystem development team for the last year or so. So yeah, it's been really great, really exciting. And even within that year, feels like I've been here a lifetime, seeing the whole iteration of Ethereum staking transform and shapeshift within that time.
Nice, yeah. Startup years plus Web3 years, like it must be quite a multiplier there, I would guess. And I guess for people that don't know like SSV at all, like I guess give us like a 30,000 foot view, and then sort of walk us down in terms of like what the organization does, and then maybe we can step into DVT a little bit.
Yeah, of course. So the main thing that we're working on at SSV Labs is distributed validator technology, or DVT. And really the project was born out of a research project from the Ethereum Foundation, where the key idea was how can you take an Ethereum validator and allow it to be run by multiple parties or multiple machines. And really how the technology works is you have a validator key, which is on the entity of the Ethereum validator that's doing all the duties. So all the block proposals, all the attestations, effectively doing all the work to provide security to the Ethereum network, and in return, getting some rewards for providing that service. But what SSV does is it allows you to take that validator key, split it into multiple key shares, and then assign those key shares to independent node operators or machines, and then tying everything together as a consensus mechanism. So what we could do in this case is actually have an Ethereum validator run by a cluster of operators. And the operators can be different entities. They can be run by even the same entity, but different cloud, different bare metal, different geolocations, different client combinations. You can really kind of go wild because distribution and decentralization is really baked into how you run validators. But the key idea is we allow validators to completely eliminate all single points of failure. So I give you this example. Your Ethereum validator is running in a DVT setup. There's a catastrophic failure on one of your operators because it's running a particular client which is buggy and goes offline, or the cloud that you're using has a catastrophic failure. No big problem whatsoever, just so long as the other operators within your cluster are on different setups. You just need to make sure the cluster size of 4, you have 3 out of 4 machines, agreeing on what needs to be signed. So everything's up and running, nice and smooth, and you don't really experience, offline time, or God forbid, slashing risk as if you had a single point of failure legacy validator setup. But that's in a nutshell how the technology works.
Nice. And I guess you mentioned that SSV, sort of distributed validator technology, born out of like a proposal at the Ethereum Foundation. I guess, can you give us a sense of like how SSV formed? Like, I believe it's a DAO setup, and there's obviously the SSV Labs component. I guess how you're set up today, and like how big the team is.
Yeah, so SSV Labs, we're the founders and really the core contributors to the protocol. We're DAO governed, and that's really important because it manages all the governance of the protocol to take care of the technology long after we're gone. But the DAO itself, classic kind of DApp or protocol setup in Ethereum, where the DAO is overseeing governance. There's a grants committee, and manages all of this stuff. With SSV Labs, we're taking care of all the R&D work, marketing, ecosystem development, and through a grant from the DAO, that we're able to do this kind of work, which is very important to build out the ecosystem. But to take you through the journey, the Ethereum Foundation provided a grant to SSV Network to build this out and really take these concepts to practical use. And really, we had a really long-standing test net of like years and years of battle testing the technology, working with different partners, like leading staking service providers, like all the top node operators, all the way down to home stakers, liquid staking tokens. Everyone really intimately involved in this ecosystem to use the tech, feedback on it, like oversee different problems, and eventually SSV Network, we went live to mainnet at the end of 2023. And in that time, from about 0 validators running on a DVT setup, last week we actually crossed 115,000 active validators on SSV. So that's roughly about 10%, or just over 10% of all Ethereum validators running on a DVT setup. So very sizable and ubiquitous within the space.
Nice, congrats. So that's 115,000 validators on Ethereum mainnet, like registered with the SSV network and running that DVT setup.
Exactly.
Nice. Cool. So maybe then what we'll do is I think jump into the demo, make this a little more real in terms of creating an Ethereum validator via SSV, and then maybe you can sort of talk us through things we should be thinking about, or what's happening in the background sort of as you do it.
Exactly. Yeah, why don't I share my screen and I can take everybody through it. Cool. Do you see my screen okay?
Yep, can see your browser, yep.
Cool. So I think for all those that don't know, that Validation Cloud have recently launched an SSV staking feature on their platform. And this is really interesting and really good because it really provides stakers with the experience, the same look and feel as they are with traditional vanilla staking. But at the back end, Validation Cloud is managing everything that you need to do to interact with SSV network. So like I said before, you have to run validators in a cluster. Validation Cloud will take care of that for you. And everything from network fees with interacting with SSV network, again, Validation Cloud really abstracts this from the user and makes it a clean end-to-end staking experience. So first of all, Aaron, big kudos to your team on delivering the product. It's really great, and I want to take everyone through how this works end-to-end process and how this interacts with SSV by showing you how the validators are displayed on our Explorer itself.
Cool.
So yeah, I'll go from there. So as you can see, you have the Validation Cloud staking dashboard. You have the ability to stake ETH, big red button. My wallet's already connected, but of course, I'm sure if it's not, then connect your wallet. This is on Hudi testnet, so purely for testing and demonstration purposes for everybody here. It's a matter of clicking next. And then you have an option here. So you have the option to use SSV distributed staking. But what is quite interesting is I haven't selected this here, but your basis APY is 3.7%. But by using SSV distributed staking, you can achieve a higher APY. And I think that's a good opportunity to tell everybody where this additional APY is coming from. And this APY is actually coming from the SSV DAO. The SSV DAO has an incentivization program in place. It's been running for ever since SSV went live on mainnet. But really, the goal and objective is to encourage the migration of legacy validators, those that are running on single point of failure setup, so those running on a DBT setup, really to spur the adoption of the technology and bring this distributed vision of Ethereum staking to life. So it's a really important program to have in place to encourage this migration. But of course, stakers can take full advantage of this by just toggling the use SSV. You hit next. I review the terms and conditions, and if I'm happy with that, I agree to stake. And it's at this point I can confirm. And if you can see on my screen, I've got a transaction request from MetaMask. I hit confirm. And it will take a few seconds for the transaction to process. But once it does, I should have a validator on Hudi pending on your dashboard. And of course, there's an activation queue, so it won't take there you go. All good. Boom. Yeah, so it's processing. It's completed. So yeah, after I think it's about a day or so of the activation queue in Hudi right now. But yeah, that's it. That's all it takes.
Yeah, it's the activation queue would be shorter on mainnet, but we didn't expect you to throw like $70,000 on the line just to show the demo. So that's cool. Yeah, the process as you showed is very similar on Hudi as it is on mainnet.
Yeah.
I guess maybe you're going to step into this in a minute, but under the hood, sort of what's happening with SSV. I know the SSV have a smart contract set up, and I guess talk us through what's happening there.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting one. So there's actually a lot of magic that's going on under the hood that's completely abstracted from the user, and it's everything that Validation Cloud will manage for you as part of kind of like an SSV managed service. So what's happening on Validation Cloud side is that you'll be generating a brand new validator key. And this is kind of your entity or the beacon chain that gives you your vote in the Ethereum network. But of course, using SSV, you have to split the keys and assign them to different node operators. So this is what Validation Cloud will do for you. They'll create a cluster. They'll split the keys, assign the key shares to the independent nodes that Validation Cloud has set up for you. And then, of course, there's all the management of SSV, so all the performance tracking, monitoring, checking that there's a balance of network fees there ready to go, so you can keep things running online on SSV network. So the whole kind of end-to-end process from key generation, splitting, management, all handled for you. So it's a really nice and clean product.
Thank you. And if you're if you were a home staker and you had 32 ETH and you wanted to set things up in this way, like SSV has a sort of a bunch of docs and SDKs where you could effectively like replicate this yourself if you wanted to put in the work. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. So on SSV side, so one of the distinguishing factors of SSV is that we're a DVT network. And what I mean by a DVT network is that we're smart contract based and all the operators are all interconnected amongst one another. And what that means is that we can create a full marketplace of node operators. So in that case, there's actually I think close to actually 2,000 node operators on SSV network registered and running today. When you technically take a new validator key and split it, it's really up to you and according to your own criteria which of the node operators you can pick and choose to run, really according to what you want to do. So it could be in price, so all node operators are denominated in SSV token for managing a key share for you. Could be obviously down to performance, that's a big one. Maybe you have a preference for grassroots and solo stakers, which you can choose. And then again, all the way down to picking client diversity, so using operators with different CL and EL combos, different geolocations. You can really go wild and create different clusters according to what you want. But of course, on validation cloud side, they manage that entire process for you, and I'm sure the operators that you guys manage are set up in a way. I'm not sure if you want to touch on that, Aaron.
Yeah, sure. So we typically set things up in the same region for latency purposes. So we have 4 operators in a typical setup, and they would be in one region of the world for latency, but in different availability zones within that one region. So if a power socket gets kicked out in one data center, like 3 of your 4 operators are still going to be attesting, so your validator is going to be online. And client diversity wise, like we've sort of participated in multi-node operator setups where there's agreement on we want to run these particular clients in this particular geography, so we do that. I think on our own stuff, I think we're sort of settled on a few different ones, but I think there's Nethermind on the execution layer as a client and Lighthouse on consensus, which we've seen really good performance and reliability with. So I think we've tried Lodestar on the consensus client kind of set up. So we've varied it, but we've sort of found through experience that certain combinations work well, but always sort of geographically spreading to some degree, even if that's different availability zones within one region, so you keep latency. So we've done it a few different ways, but that's sort of a typical setup.
Nice, good stuff. No, it's interesting to hear how really the top performing professional node operators are setting up their infrastructure. Obviously, down the stack, down to home stakers, going to have different stuff that works for them. But of course, when you're managing institutional clients or lots of things, then just having that performance and how you guys run it is imperative.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there? I know there's various tools that SSV has, like various web apps. Did you want to showcase anything there that you have?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, maybe why don't I share my screen? I'll take everyone through SSV scan. Let me share my screen here. Yeah. So as I mentioned before, because SSV is smart contract based and it's a DVT network, where SSV really shines is that we all the data is fully available. So we have a couple of block explorers where you can poke your head in. to really, see, how the validators are performing, how everything is interconnected amongst one another on SSV network itself. And that's really important for anyone that's managing, validators on SSV, just to really get that, insight on performance and how everything is working together. Of course, we don't have the one on Hoodie activated yet. Otherwise, we'd be having a very long live stream. So this is a validator on mainnet that's up and running and managed by the validation cloud team. Of course, that's pretty phenomenal performance. So you've heard validation cloud secret sauce and how they keep this amazing performance for their validators that are running on the network itself. So yeah, you can see, there's 4 operators that are running, each very, very close to 100% over 24 hours. You can see, there's the balance. You can see who the owner is. I can go all the way down into, all the individual duties. This is, amazing, because this is a great thing to demonstrate that, if, for whatever reason, one of your operators failed in one of its duties, it's no problem at all, just because you can see this cluster 3 out of 4 managed to keep it online. So if this was a legacy validator on this machine, then yeah, I would have missed the attestation. So that's kind of really to demonstrate how the technology is working. You can click into the cluster. You can see, there's the operational runway. This is, all about managing the network fees and SSV, which Validation Cloud, manage for you within their product.
Do you want to touch on the cluster and the operational runway, like just at a high level? So I guess less to do with how we do it, but for everyone's benefit, you obviously got the cluster, and then you're paying some sort of fee to SSV for the technology, and you need to keep that operational, right?
Yeah, exactly. So for any validator that's running on SSV network, there is a network fee associated with it, and this is paid to the SSV DAO. And obviously, that's very important for to fund all the R&D and innovation to continue iterating on the protocol. It's really small. It's about 2 SSV per year per validator, and the price of SSV is like roughly about $10 right now. So it's like $20 per year per validator. Very, very cheap. But obviously, to keep clusters online and keep your validator being run by the network, you need to ensure that you have at least 30 days of operational runway on your validator, to ensure it's running. So you can see here, it's stated as 4 days, so that would be 30 plus 4. And then, just so long as you're above the 30-day mark of having enough network fees to cover your validators, then you're good to go. And I know on your side, you've set up some mechanisms. I think you mentioned before, and once you cross 3 days or something, you automatically top up your balance. So stakers don't need to worry at all about managing this for them. But like we discussed before, if you're a solo staker and you want to interact with a SSV on your own and run your own machines, then this is something that you'll need to manage yourself.
So, and I guess maybe just for the audience's benefit, if this goes to 0, you run out of your operational runway, I guess what happens?
Yeah, in that unfortunate case, you'll face something called a liquidation. And a liquidation will basically take away your collateral, which is like your 30 days runway of making sure everything's there, up and running. And SSV network will stop managing your validator, and that's really there to make sure that someone's paying the bills, because these operators have got to run their machines and make sure your validator's up and running. So at that point, what you'll need to do is top up your balance to get things up and running again. But we have plenty of mechanisms here and open source tooling ready to help you. So you can have all your automations in place to always ensure your balance is sufficient.
Awesome. Yeah, good Good to know. And is there, I was going to move into talking about SSV 2.0. So you've talked about, my understanding again, please correct me, like SSV 1.0 was all about introducing distributed validator technology, trying to grow sort of the adoption of distributed validator technology. That mission continues. And the idea, more fault tolerant, decentralized validators for Ethereum. So that's sort of you're on that mission, but in parallel, SSV 2.0. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Of course. So SSV 2.0 introduces based applications. And based applications are really what we're considering as staking 2.0. This is really the new iteration of staking. But what based applications are is that it's a form of shared security. I think for anyone listening that's deep in the Ethereum or staking space, their mind may immediately jump to restaking. But it's not restaking. It's a totally different implementation. Like there's a lot of things that that are largely similar in the case that whether you're building a type of Web3 service that needs to be bootstrapped by a decentralized set of validators, whether that's a base rollup, whether that's a pre-confirmation protocol, an Oracle AI agent, these kind of use cases which are very synonymous with AVS, they can implement themselves and derive their security from a based application. But to explain what they are exactly, I think we need to take a few steps back and look at the story of Ethereum validators as a whole and where we are today. So I think from a few years ago, Ethereum validators doing very vanilla things, just securing the Ethereum blockchain, doing their duties and block proposals and gaining rewards. MEV comes along. MEV is an opt-in kind of service where they can earn additional rewards, but again, no compromise to the security of the validator whatsoever. Again, DVT is a type of thing. It's alpha that validators can opt into. Obviously, there's no impediment to security. In fact, improved security. But there's, like I mentioned before, with the incentives, there's rewards on the table to do that. We have pre-confirmations now, which again is following this route of more and more yield, not compromising security. The reason why restaking doesn't fit into this bucket is because it's inherently risky. If you have 32 ETH in your validator, that validator balance is going to be at risk. What we've done with based applications is we're bringing more yield to validators that are running on SSV network by opting in to secure a blue ocean of opportunities, many different based applications. But in return, there's no slashing risk to the balance of the validator. We actually isolate the slashing risk separately because the validator itself is providing cost to attack security. What is cost to attack security is with any decentralized network. Take Ethereum, for example, the cost to attack Ethereum is 32 ETH. Once I successfully attack Ethereum, what do I stand to lose? I get slashed. That's 1 ETH. So your total security is 33 ETH. Because we can kind of split security into the validator, when they opt in to secure a based application, that's providing cost to attack security. And then we can isolate a separate pool for slashing. So like if you're like a base rollup, when you require like 2,000 validators of security, that's 2,000 times 32, like off the bat, ready to go. Like that's there for you. And you can provide some rewards there for the validators that are opting in. So you're opting in to the most robust, secure, decentralized validator set in the world, secured with DVT technology. So it's like really the gold standard type of security in the market. And then if the developer itself, like, hey, we actually want slashing as part of our design choice, like we can create a separate kind of higher risk, higher yield pool, but it's never going to touch the validator balance. So this is the kind of innovation that we're introducing to the market.
Got it. So let me recap to make sure I followed. So with SSV 2.0, I guess moving into how can this like gold standard of validators on Ethereum be leveraged better, and there's the shared security aspect to that. But unlike say restaking, if I've got one validator and I restake it to EigenLayer and I opt into some actively validated services, my 32 ETH could be slashed. I have to change my withdrawal credentials to the eigenpod. I have to do all of that. You're saying that like my same one validator, I could opt into particular based applications, and then I would get there'd be some rewards, but my 32 ETH is not a risk. I might have to would I have to put up ERC20 that might be at risk if it, or how does that part work?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think to break it down is Eigenlayer is playing liquidity games. And what I mean by that is like, for argument's sake, you have 100 ETH that they're securing 5 ABS.
Mm-hmm.
If the sixth ABS comes along, it's like, hey guys, like I want security. As like the restaker, what do I need to do? I either need to rebalance my portfolio,
Mm-hmm.
or I need to, top up with additional capital. With based applications, you can continually stack different ones. So it's an infinite sum game rather than a zero sum game. So, for example, like quite naturally, because there's no risk, the based app developer can pay less for security. So actually, it's cheaper for them
I
to
see.
provide security as a based app. But you can continually stack different ones. So if you're running Ethereum validators, you could opt into 10 based apps, all providing, say, 0.2, 0.3 APY boost, zero point
Mm-hmm.
0.3 APY on top of your ETH staking APY. And then you can really begin to see how quickly this scales once you opt into many, many different based apps on your validator. But to your question, like how does like the slashable capital work? That's in a separate pool. So that would be kind of like a more high risk, high yield pool that they can set up. So we have a cost to attack and then a cost of corruption pool that's providing security for the base app.
Got it. Okay. And rewards wise, so again, like my understanding of Eigenlayer and AVS is the AVSs can choose to pay rewards in a variety of ERC20s. Then you, as the person restaking, get some of that token, whatever it is. How does that work in the based applications world?
Yeah, it's the same as well. So based apps, again, when they develop their based application, they can choose to pay rewards in any token that they want to.
Got
And
it.
it's really, giving them the flexibility to do what they want. Of course, creating good token economics for the native token for what they want to do in their protocol is always important.
Mm.
Operators may prefer to take rewards in ETH or even stable coins. Again, really up to them. So that it gives them the chance to think about how they design their model.
Got it. Okay. And so based applications, am I right in saying that it's all being tested right now on the Hoodie testnet?
Yeah. So it's all on Hoodie. So it's there for everyone to get their hands dirty. So if you're, based up, so if you're an application that's looking for a decentralized set of validators, you have Ethereum right in front of you. So you have all these Ethereum validators that can repurpose their hardware to secure your application. Yeah, feel free to get in touch with us and happy to take you through, what, type of security we can set up for you. Again, if you're a validator team, and you're looking for ways that you can fine tune the rewards that you can get from the staking activities that you do. Again, you can use the testnet right now to see the look and feel and how the end-to-end flow works and shape it together with us.
Cool. And we don't have to dive into all the details, but from the, I guess, the validator's point of view, are you opting in via like another smart contract call for a particular based application, or how does that part work?
Yeah, so the way it works on base application itself is that we isolate this strategy manager component.
Okay.
So it's think of it as kind of like a fund manager in the way that you have your portfolio of different based applications that you want to provide security to. So you create a strategy, and then the based app, obviously defines the type of security that they need. So they may need a certain number of validators to opt into
Hmm.
your strategy, and they may need some collateral for the slashing component as well. So that's how it works.
Got it. Okay, very cool. And I realise we're almost in the final few minutes. Did you want to talk about SSV staking, staking of the SSV token, I should say, which I understand is also like coming soon.
Yeah, so this is a big roadmap item. So this is coming at the end of this year. So actually, as part of this SSV 2.0 vision, is that we're building a dedicated SSV chain. So this will be, a standalone app chain that's going to be handling all the coordination work for DVT as well as
Mm.
based apps, and really make this, much more scalable, so we can take it to market. And this will introduce SSV staking itself. The reason is that the security of this app chain will be derived as a base application itself. So you'll be able to
Oh,
stake
okay.
your SSV.
You're dog fooding or drinking your own champagne, so that chain will
Exactly.
be a based
Yeah, you
application.
have to have conviction in your own tech, but I think at the end of the day, it really, just goes to demonstrate, how this could be used, and I think pretty successfully done by EigenLayer. This is they have, EigenDA that's,
Mhm.
an AVS ready to go. So, it's this kind of thing that we're doing as well. But on top of that, with the SSV chain, any L1 validator, whether you have Solana validators or Cosmos validators, could again opt in to secure based apps. So like we take this level of security one step further, because you'll have many, many different L1 chains from different blockchains opting in to secure a based app. So it's really security on steroids.
Yeah. Wow. And I guess like talk me through how I guess you at SSV Labs think about the different sort of success criteria or adoption metrics. I guess for DVT, is it, as you mentioned before, like how many Ethereum validators are sort of running using SSV DVT on mainnet, and then when you get to based applications, is it I guess talk to me about like what you look at there or what you think about in terms of success.
Yeah, I think for us in terms of success, like number one is fulfilling this vision of proliferating DBT in the
Mm.
market. So really becoming the gold standard way to run a validator. And I think things are becoming very interesting in the Ethereum space, given that we have a lot of net new flow from institutions itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, people like you guys are, well positioned to provide that, you know, that superior infrastructure layer for them to let them start staking, especially when they're launching, Ethereum ETFs and need a really reliable partner to get staking. So having this, validation, excuse the pun, of the technology ready to go, I think that's a good way. On the base application side as well, again, I think for us, what's really important is like bringing like the mojo back to Ethereum. So really, we have a duty as like such a player in the Ethereum space, like with over 10% of the validators running on us. Like, how can we ensure that validators are accruing a lot of value? The ETH token itself is accruing value, and really fulfilling this vision of like a decentralized, credibly neutral blockchain, housing a lot of the use cases from stable coins, DeFi, and so on and so forth. And really, based applications are the way to unlock that. One, can we provide security to different auxiliary services on Web3? But again, like those that hold Ether token or running validators, like
Mm.
how can they progressively get sustainable higher rewards for providing their ETH into validation?
Got it. Cool. And I know that to help encourage the distributed validator technology adoption, like you've sort of worked on an incentive program to kind of provide SSV tokens as extra rewards, which you talked about at the start. Like, I guess, do you see it as like that's to make that sustainable? That sort of slowly phases out, but by that time the technology is so proven that it's the gold standard, or how do you sort of see that playing out to maintain a sort of sustainable ecosystem?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think incentives are really important to bootstrap any Web3 network, and
Mm.
points, and there's no way around it. That's really a proven success path. And again, if I speak to product managers like yourself, like really interested in using the technology, but people are very busy. Like we know the promise, but we're very enthusiastic about it. But incentives, are the cherry on top to get people to start using the tech and really get going. But you're exactly right. Like obviously incentives are somewhat time limited. Obviously you can't mint your growth forever. But at least we have some runway now to really fund this bootstrap period. And then over time, this will be phased out by based apps. And based apps are really the true, sustainable yield that are coming from, off-chain services. So over time, we actually even feel that with sufficient critical mass, a lot of the base apps are going to be providing like much, much more yield than incentives from SSV ever did. So that's what's on our roadmap going forward.
Got it. So is the idea that SSV adoption in terms of distributed validators within Ethereum sort of continues to grow, and then naturally as based applications sort of grows, those validators choose to opt into certain strategies and get rewards that way? Is that sort of the path? And then you may, if you have SSV tokens as well, you may be staking them to earn additional rewards. I guess that would just be an example of using a based application.
Exactly. It's a big flywheel. So all the early adopters of the technology obviously been earning their SSV tokens from the early days of using DVT. And then we're bringing more use case for that token, whether that's staking to secure SSV chain, earning additional yield, lots of fun things. And yeah, who knows where this journey is going to go? I'm sure we're going to learn like a lot of interesting things, especially as market dynamics change. But at least I think we have a very compelling offer to take to Ethereum validators to really bring the excitement back to the Ethereum space.
Awesome, indeed. Cool. So I guess just to close us out, if people want to find out more info on SSV, should they go to the ssv.network website? Do you want to share anything about things coming up for the rest of the year? You already talked about a bunch.
Yeah, there's a lot. You're exactly right. But I think if you want to learn more, best place to start is with the website. Like you have a very detailed documentation, really for all levels, like really introductory stuff to take you through, right down to provisioning operators and running a validator yourself. So really depending on your technical experience, there's loads of great resources on there. But next, I think a lot of us from the team are heading down to ECC in Cannes in a few weeks' time. So if anyone listening wants to meet up and discuss everything, staking, based applications, Ethereum, then feel free to ping us. Get in touch, and we're more than happy to meet up.
Awesome. That's great. So I guess if anybody's sort of watching along, like this is the ssv.network/based is where you'll find out about the based applications that Alex mentioned. And then ssv.network has a whole variety of developer docs or just even like abouts to kind of learn about the technology. I've used the developer docs a bunch, so they've been road tested, which has been certainly helpful for us. So I'd encourage people to sort of go check it out. And I think that's probably pretty much it. We're almost at time, so I'll just say a big thank you to Alex for kind of coming along, telling us about SSV and showing us not only sort of a distributed validator in action on the Hoodie testnet, but also sort of talking about based applications and what's coming next for SSV. So thank you, Alex.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Aaron.
That's quite all right. And yeah, if you want to kind of play around and set up your own distributed validator on the Hoodie testnet or even on mainnet, you can go to validationcloud.io and just follow similar steps to what you saw Alex do, connect your wallet and go from there. And then you've got the SSV scan tools where you can look at the operator setup that will happen for you behind the scenes. So yeah, this episode will be available on YouTube and X, and follow us at Validation Cloud. And I'll say thank you, happy Wednesday, and talk soon. Thanks all.
Cheers, everyone.